Oh my God, I got it! I can't believe this is happening.
Private jets, champagne, and designer dreams. Chioma craved the ultimate soft life, but her exclusive invitation led to a terrifying disappearance for 72 hours. The truth of what happened miles above Lagos is darker than you can imagine. Prepare to be shocked. Chioma adjusted her gold hoop earrings, the polished metal glinting in the reflection of her phone screen. Beyond the glass, the evening lights of Victoria Island shimmered like scattered diamonds, a breathtaking panorama of Lagos at night. Yet, her attention remained riveted on the notification glowing on her Instagram feed. A direct message. From Tay. His name alone carried the weight of exclusivity, a top influencer whose lavish parties were whispered about across Lagos and even as far as Dubai. You're invited to an exclusive private jet event tomorrow night. Come through if you're ready to fly. Chioma's heart lurched, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. She had spent countless hours scrolling through his stories, catching glimpses of a world that felt impossibly distant, glittering parties held in exotic locations, champagne flutes catching the light, sleek private jets awaiting departure, and designer bags nestled casually in the laps of the city's undisputed elite. This wasn't just an invitation, it was a golden key. This was the soft life, the opulent dream she had tirelessly worked towards, meticulously curating her own online presence, styling every post, and networking relentlessly for even the smallest foothold in that rarefied sphere. Her phone buzzed again, startling her. It was from Ife, her best friend, whose practical nature was a steady counterpoint to Chioma's soaring ambitions. You're joking, right? That private jet thing? Are you sure it's legit? Chioma's fingers trembled with a mixture of excitement and disbelief as she tapped out a quick reply. It has to be Ife. Look at his stories. Everyone who's anyone goes. I can't miss this. This is it. She leaned back onto her plush velvet couch, the soft hum of the city a distant lullaby against her racing thoughts. This wasn't merely an event, this was a potential turning point, the night that could irrevocably change the trajectory of her life. Her wardrobe, a carefully curated collection, had been months in the making. Tonight, it would be the shimmering silver mini dress, strappy heels that added inches to her already confident stride, and a designer clutch, each piece chosen to project an image of effortless belonging. She wanted to look like someone who was already at home in that exclusive world, someone who naturally stepped onto a private jet as if it were an extension of her own luxurious apartment. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Sleep proved elusive, her mind a relentless churn of dazzling possibilities, envisioning herself amidst boundless luxury and universal admiration. Each imagined scenario felt more real, more intoxicating than the last. By the time the first streaks of dawn painted the Lagos sky in hues of soft orange and violet, Chioma was not just awake, she was ready. Ready to embark on a journey that promised to carry her deepest dreams, or perhaps, unknowingly, her darkest nightmares. The anticipation was a tangible weight, a thrilling, terrifying promise. By evening, the private airstrip was transformed. Powerful floodlights cast a stark, almost theatrical glow across the tarmac, illuminating the scene in sharp contrasts of light and shadow. Chioma stepped out of her car, the crisp click of her heels against the pavement a rhythmic counterpoint to the quiet hum of distant machinery. At the center of the runway, sleek and pristine, waited a magnificent white private jet. Its polished surface gleamed like a mirror, reflecting the intense light with an almost blinding brilliance. A shiver, a potent mix of awe and burgeoning fear, traced its way down Chioma's spine. This was it. The dream made real. A sharply dressed attendant, his uniform impeccable, moved towards her. His expression was a carefully neutral mask of professionalism, yet his eyes held a subtle, unreadable quality. "Welcome. Mr. Tay is expecting you inside. Please follow me." Chioma's pulse quickened, a frantic drum against her ribs, as she ascended the jet steps. Each step felt like a climb into another dimension. The interior was even more magnificent than her most extravagant imaginings. Plush, cream-colored leather seats lined the cabin, their surfaces inviting and soft. Golden trim gleamed along the overhead compartments, catching the ambient light. The soft, strategically placed lighting bathed the cabin in a warm, inviting glow, making it feel less like a mode of transport and more like a lavish, floating lounge suspended in time. The air was thick with the faint, expensive scent of a unique, luxury perfume. As the heavy door closed behind her with a soft, decisive thud, a subtle unease began to prickle at the edges of Chioma's excitement. She scanned the opulent cabin, a growing realization dawning on her. None of her usual crowd was here. None of the familiar faces of other slay queens or social media personalities she had anticipated seeing. Instead, there were only a handful of unfamiliar guests, each impeccably dressed, their smiles polite but not entirely warm. Some glanced at her, their eyes lingering a moment too long, as though subtly sizing her up. The atmosphere, despite its luxury, felt strangely sterile, lacking the vibrant energy she associated with Lagos gatherings. Then, Tay appeared, emerging from the forward section of the cabin. He was taller than she had imagined from his Instagram photos, his athletic frame clad in crisp, unblemished white designer clothes. His smile was warm, undeniably charming, but a flicker in his dark eyes betrayed a depth she couldn't quite decipher. It didn't quite reach the surface. "Chioma," he said, his voice smooth and perfectly modulated. "I'm glad you made it. Tonight is special. Just relax and enjoy." Chioma nodded, a small, involuntary easing of the tension in her shoulders. His words, though somewhat generic, offered a momentary reprieve from her growing apprehension. She sank into one of the plush leather chairs, the jet's powerful engines beginning their low, rhythmic hum beneath her. For a fleeting moment, she allowed herself to succumb completely to the fantasy, imagining a life steeped in this kind of indulgence: endless champagne flutes, panoramic rooftop views of glittering skylines, the intoxicating freedom that wealth promised. This was the soft life, an endless horizon of effortless luxury. But somewhere, deep within the recesses of her mind, a quiet, insistent warning began to whisper. It was an unsettling sense, born from the unexpected emptiness of the cabin, the way some eyes seemed to follow her with an unreadable intensity, and the almost too perfect smiles that seemed to mask something unspoken. The hum of the jet engines, once a comforting sound of ascent, now seemed to vibrate with a subtle, underlying tension, a discordant note in her perfectly orchestrated dream. The jet surged, a powerful beast gaining momentum before lifting off with a smooth, almost imperceptible grace. Chioma instinctively pressed her hand against the plush leather armrest, her gaze fixed on the sprawling tapestry of Lagos lights that rapidly diminished below. The city, her home, became a distant, glittering memory, swallowed by the vast expanse of the night sky. The soft, rhythmic hum of the engines vibrated through the cabin, a constant companion to the faint, luxurious scent of expensive perfume that now permeated the air. Attendants moved through the cabin with practiced ease, circulating trays laden with delicate champagne flutes, sparkling cocktails in vibrant hues, and an array of meticulously arranged gourmet canapés. Chioma accepted a glass, the cool crystal a welcome contrast to the warmth of her hand, and attempted to immerse herself in the polite laughter and hushed chatter that filled the cabin. The atmosphere was intoxicating, a potent blend of luxury and effortless elegance. Everyone present exuded an aura of flawless perfection, effortlessly rich, effortlessly confident, their every gesture refined and poised. Chioma, with her carefully chosen attire and composed smile, allowed herself to blend in, to become another seamless part of this elite tableau. Nights like this, she thought, were the very fabric of her dreams, and now, against the backdrop of the inky sky, they were undeniably real. The soft life dream she had relentlessly pursued through countless Instagram posts, strategic hashtags, and endless networking events was unfolding before her very eyes, more dazzling than any filter could create. Tay moved through the cabin with an almost regal ease, a charismatic host gliding from one conversation to another, dispensing greetings and charm with practiced fluidity. When he eventually paused beside her seat, Chioma felt an undeniable flutter in her chest, a mix of excitement and a curious apprehension. "You look stunning tonight," he said, his voice a low, smooth murmur, his gaze sweeping over her with an appreciative, though still unreadable intensity. "I knew you'd make it." "Thank you," she managed, the word barely a whisper, striving to maintain a facade of calm despite the sudden rush of adrenaline that threatened to overwhelm her. He leaned slightly closer, his presence commanding yet subtly unnerving. "Enjoy yourself, Chioma. Tonight there are no limits. Just let go." His words, intended to soothe, instead carried an unsettling double meaning, a faint echo of something both liberating and vaguely menacing. Chioma took a slow sip of her champagne, letting the delicate bubbles tingle on her tongue, trying to savor the moment. Yet her attention kept straying, drawn inexplicably to a small, isolated group of guests huddled in the rear section of the cabin. Their eyes, she observed, held a peculiar glint, something sharp and calculating that she couldn't quite decipher. She mentally chastised herself, dismissing it as paranoia, a mere trick of the ambient lighting. After all, she reasoned, I'm here to enjoy the night, not to scrutinize strangers. But as the music swelled, growing louder and more insistent, and the party's energy escalated, she found herself noticing a series of subtle, unsettling details. Whispered conversations abruptly halted as she walked by, their participants exchanging quick, furtive glances over the rims of their cocktail glasses. Hands would brush each other in seemingly casual, yet somehow secretive, gestures. The palpable sense of luxury that enveloped her, once a source of pure exhilaration, now began to feel strangely unreal. It was too perfect, too polished, like a meticulously constructed stage set where every detail was in its designated place, yet somehow lacked the spontaneous, chaotic energy of genuine joy. The unease, once a whisper, grew into a faint, persistent hum beneath the surface of the glamorous facade. Hours into the flight, the party had reached its zenith. The cabin thrummed with the vibrant energy of music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Chioma, initially caught up in the intoxicating whirl, found herself drifting towards a window, gazing out at the endless canvas of stars that stretched beyond the tinted glass. The sheer immensity of the sky, dotted with distant, glittering constellations, was a stark reminder of how far she had traveled, both physically and metaphorically, from the familiar streets of Lagos. Tay's presence beside her was a sudden, quiet intrusion, his arrival almost soundless amidst the cabin's lively din. He held 2 fresh glasses of champagne, the bubbles in the crystal flutes catching the subtle ambient light. His smile, though as warm and charming as ever, still possessed that peculiar quality that prevented it from quite reaching his eyes. "Chioma," he said softly, his voice cutting through the noise with surprising clarity, "there's something I'd like to show you. Something exclusive. Only a select few get this chance." Her heart, already quickened by the champagne and the altitude, performed another frantic beat. The word exclusive was a powerful trigger, resonating with the deepest desires of her soft-life ambition. "What is it?" she breathed, her voice barely a whisper, a thrill of anticipation shooting through her. He gestured with a slight inclination of his head, inviting her to follow. The cabin seemed to shift subtly as they moved towards a rear section she hadn't fully noticed before, a passageway that led deeper into the jet's luxurious interior. As they stepped into it, the music and chatter of the main party receded, replaced by a profound, almost hushed quiet. This section was dimly lit, bathed in a softer, more intimate glow, revealing plush, deeper-hued seating arrangements and a small, elegantly appointed bar. Tay placed the champagne flutes on the polished surface of the bar and, with a practiced motion, poured 2 fresh glasses, offering one to Chioma. "This," he began, his voice dropping to a confidential murmur, "is a private invitation. It's for those I believe possess the rare quality to truly go further. You see, Chioma, there's a world that exists far beyond Lagos, far beyond the fleeting glimpses of social media, even beyond these parties. It's a world of profound influence, of true power. People like you have raw potential. But to access this world, it demands a certain courage. It requires risk. Are you willing to take it?" Chioma swallowed hard, the champagne suddenly feeling dry on her tongue. The excitement and apprehension that mingled in her chest created a dizzying internal conflict. This was the ultimate opportunity, the one she had been relentlessly striving for. This life, this level of access and status, was everything she yearned for. "I'm ready," she managed, the words emerging as a statement of profound resolve, despite the subtle tremor in her voice. Tay's smile deepened, almost imperceptibly, a fleeting expression that held a complex mixture of approval and something far more enigmatic. "Good," he said, his gaze fixed on hers, unwavering. "Just remember, Chioma, every choice has its price. Every step forward demands a payment." At that moment, Chioma barely registered the subtle undercurrent of warning in his voice. Her mind was utterly consumed by the dazzling image of opportunity, unfathomable glamour, unparalleled access, undisputed status. For those few intoxicating moments, suspended high above the world, she allowed herself to believe, completely and wholeheartedly, that she belonged entirely in this extraordinary new realm. The price, whatever it might be, felt insignificant compared to the promise of such boundless possibilities. The dream was within her grasp to be why the 3rd hour of the flight, the initial rush of euphoria that had enveloped Chioma began to subtly, yet perceptibly recede. The champagne, once a catalyst for boundless excitement, now left a faint, metallic taste on her tongue. Her senses, once dulled by the intoxicating atmosphere, sharpened, picking up on a series of small, discordant details that simply refused to add up. There was a peculiar looseness in the buckle of her seatbelt, a gentle click-clack that suggested it had been tampered with. A bottle of water, which she distinctly remembered leaving untouched, now sat conspicuously empty beside her seat. And then faint, almost imperceptible footprints on the plush carpet led towards a heavy, unmarked door in the rear of the cabin. a door she had been explicitly told remained closed for the duration of the flight. She tried to rationalize it away, shrugging off the growing unease. Perhaps it's just nerves, she told herself, a natural reaction to such an overwhelming experience. Perhaps I'm simply imagining the tension, fabricating mysteries where none exist. But when Tay reappeared, emerging from the forward cabin with that same enigmatic smile, leaning closer than strictly necessary, a definite twinge of unease, sharp and insistent, coiled in her stomach. "You seem nervous, Chioma," he observed, his voice smooth, yet carrying a subtle undertone that sent a shiver down her spine. "Relax. Everything is fine." Chioma nodded, forcing a smile that felt utterly unnatural on her lips, despite the insistent churning in her gut. "Everything is fine," she repeated mentally, a mantra she desperately wanted to believe. But her eyes, scanning the cabin, kept noticing the subtle shifts in the cabin crew's movements, their hushed, almost furtive whispers behind closed doors, the quick, conspiratorial glances exchanged among the other guests, all seemingly watching her with an unnerving, collective intensity. The discomfort steadily escalated from a mere twinge to a persistent ache. As the night stretched on, a new, alarming realization solidified her growing apprehension. Her phone had completely lost signal. The display remained stubbornly blank, a dark mirror reflecting her mounting panic. She had no way of contacting Ife, no way of reaching anyone back in Lagos. The sudden, absolute severance from her familiar world was a shock, a cold dose of reality. The soft life dream, once so vibrant and alluring, now felt precarious, delicate, and terrifyingly out of reach, its shimmering facade cracking under the weight of unforeseen circumstances. Chioma settled back into her plush seat, attempting to calm her racing thoughts, to rein in the burgeoning panic. But the very luxury that surrounded her, the golden trim and soft leather, now felt less like boundless freedom and more like the gilded bars of a very elegant cage. A chilling certainty began to form in the back of her mind, a premonition that settled deep in her bones. This night, with all its shimmering promises, would not end the way she had so meticulously imagined. The dream was slowly, inexorably, morphing into something else entirely. Morning light, diffused and tinted by the jet's specialized windows, painted the cabin in hues of soft gray and muted gold. Chioma found it difficult to gauge the exact time, or even the outside world's true disposition. The jet's cabin, once a vibrant hub of music and laughter, was now eerily quiet, the silence almost deafening. Most of the guests were either deeply asleep, sprawled across the plush seats in various states of repose, or had retreated to the rear section of the plane, lingering there in hushed groups. This left Chioma feeling acutely isolated, a creeping sense of unease settling around her like a shroud. She instinctively tried to brush it off, to dismiss her growing anxiety as merely the lingering aftereffects of the champagne and the overstimulation from the previous night's excitement. "It's just exhaustion," she told herself, "a natural dip after such a high." But then, her eyes, now sharper and more observant in the subdued light, began to pick out a series of small, disquieting details that simply refused to align with her attempts at reassurance. The seatbelt latch near her chair, for instance, bore a distinct scratch, a fresh abrasion that looked deliberate, as though something had been pried open. A bottle of premium bottled water, which she distinctly remembered leaving unopened by her side, now sat conspicuously empty. And then faint, almost imperceptible footprints on the plush, deep pile carpet led mysteriously towards that same heavy, unmarked door she had been warned about, the one that was supposedly off-limits. When Tay eventually reappeared, emerging from the forward cabin, The easy charm that had defined his earlier demeanor was noticeably absent. His chiseled face was set, his expression devoid of warmth, and his dark eyes held a new, sharper glint. "You should relax, Chioma," he said, his voice a touch too precise, a shade too sharp. "The night was long. Don't overthink it." Chioma nodded, a stiff, involuntary movement, even as the knot in her stomach tightened, coiling into a cold, hard ball of dread. Something about the way he lingered too close, the way the shadows danced and shifted across the cabin walls, seemed to amplify her already frayed nerves. She tried to force a smile, a desperate attempt to remind herself that she was, theoretically, here by choice, that this was the soft life she had meticulously chosen. But the truth, stark and undeniable, was beginning to assert itself. The very luxury she had so desperately craved had subtly, inexorably, begun to morph into an inescapable trap. The elegant confines of the private jet now felt less like a dream and more like a carefully constructed prison, each golden trim a gilded bar, each plush seat a silken restraint. By the afternoon, the jet had soared far beyond any recognizable landmarks, past the familiar coastline of Lagos, past any routes Chioma could possibly recognize. The vast, unbroken expanse of ocean stretched out beneath them, an endless, shimmering blue that offered no comfort, no sense of direction. The once glamorous party, now a distant memory, had dissolved into a tense, palpable silence. The other passengers, who had initially presented as friendly and engaging, now maintained a deliberate, unsettling distance, actively avoiding her gaze entirely. Every forced smile felt brittle, every strained laugh hollow and artificial, echoing unnaturally in the suddenly cavernous cabin. The air grew heavy with unspoken tension, thick with a sense of foreboding that pressed down on Chioma with a physical weight. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped within a cage. She knew, with a chilling certainty, that something fundamental had shifted. The dream was dissolving, replaced by an increasingly stark and dangerous reality. Then it happened. The heavy cabin door, the one she had tried earlier and found securely locked, clicked shut behind her with a soft, ominous thud. Chioma spun around, her breath catching in her throat, her eyes wide with sudden, unmasked fear. Tay stood there, blocking her path, his tall, athletic frame casting a long shadow across the plush carpet. The charming facade had completely vanished, replaced by an expression of cold, unyielding resolve. His dark eyes, once merely enigmatic, were now hard and devoid of any warmth. "It's time you understand, Chioma," he said, his voice flat, stripped of its previous smooth allure. "Luxury isn't free, and dreams always come with costs." Her pulse spiked, a frantic, desperate rhythm. A cold wave of realization washed over her, chilling her to the bone. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible, thick with a rising panic that threatened to choke her. She instinctively knew, however, that she understood far more than she dared to admit. "You've been chosen for an experience," he continued, his gaze unwavering, cold and piercing. 3 days. 3 days away from everything familiar. 3 days to truly test what you're really made of. To see if you possess the resilience, the adaptability, the true mettle, to navigate a world where the stakes are far higher than a viral Instagram post. Chioma's mind raced, a terrifying clarity descending upon her. She had no control. The chilling, undeniable truth slammed into her with the force of a physical blow. She had willingly stepped into a situation from which there was no immediate escape. The jet's powerful engines hummed steadily beneath her, a relentless mechanical pulse, carrying her farther and farther from home, farther from safety, deeper into an unknown and terrifying void. The soft life fantasy she had so eagerly chased was now a stark, terrifying reality. Every luxurious detail that surrounded her, the champagne, the plush seats, the designer attire she had so meticulously chosen, each piece now felt like a cruel, mocking reminder that she had stepped too far, too blindly, into a world she didn't fully comprehend, a world that now held her captive. The dream had transformed into a gilded prison. 3 days. 3 days blurred into an agonizing, endless stretch of time, marked only by the shifting light outside the tinted windows and the relentless, monotonous hum of the jet's engines. Chioma's phone remained a dead weight in her bag, its blank screen a stark symbol of her complete isolation. Her desperate messages, composed in moments of terror and longing, remained tragically unanswered, lost in a void where no signal could penetrate. The other passengers, once a source of faint unease, now maintained an almost hostile distance, their expressions cold, their eyes avoiding hers with a chilling consistency. Each hour stretched endlessly, a torturous eternity, the jet's rhythmic pulse beneath her feet a constant, inescapable reminder of her captivity and her growing despair. She quickly realized that survival demanded immediate adaptation. Food, when it was offered, was limited and often bland, serving only to sustain her physically. Conversations were sparse, clipped, and superficial, offering no solace or real human connection. Every interaction, every fleeting glance from Tay or the other inscrutable guests, felt like a calculated test, an unspoken challenge to her composure. She learned to observe quietly, to anticipate their movements and moods, to read the subtle shifts in the cabin's atmosphere. Most crucially, she learned to mask her raw, visceral fear with a calm, almost detached composure, building an internal wall against the mounting panic. The glamour that had initially thrilled her, the shimmering allure of the soft life, now felt suffocating, almost grotesque in its excess. The plush leather, the golden accents, the endless array of untouched luxuries, they mocked her, serving as constant reminders of the freedom she had unwittingly surrendered. She found herself yearning for the simple, chaotic familiarity of the streets of Lagos, for the comforting, easy laughter of Ife, for the humble sanctuary of her own apartment. The steep price of her ambition, once an abstract concept, became painfully, viscerally clear. Her dream, once a beacon of hope, had become a gilded trap, and now, her singular imperative was to survive it. By the third night, exhaustion had truly taken its toll. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, a dull, persistent ache, but it was the mental and emotional strain that weighed most heavily. Sleep, when it came, was fitful and shallow, haunted by the unsettling silence and the relentless hum of the engines. In those long, desolate hours, Chioma glimpsed the stark, unvarnished truth of luxury, its seductive power, its intoxicating allure, and the insidious danger that lay carefully hidden beneath every shimmer and gleam. She understood now, with chilling clarity, that she had been lured by the superficiality of appearances, seduced by the curated images of a life she didn't truly comprehend. The profound cost of overreaching for a dream, of chasing an illusion too quickly and too blindly, became an indelible lesson etched into her very soul. When the jet finally touched down, the familiar rumble of the landing gear on solid ground was a jarring, almost violent sensation. Chioma barely recognized herself in the fleeting reflection of the darkened cabin window. Her once flawless makeup was smudged, a testament to sleepless nights and silent tears. Her shimmering silver dress, carefully chosen for a night of glamour, was now wrinkled and clung uncomfortably to her exhausted frame. Her hands, which had trembled in moments of panic, now shook slightly from a lingering cocktail of exhaustion, fear, and profound stress. Chioma swallowed hard, her throat dry and constricted. The words felt heavy, thick with unspoken experiences. The 3 days had stripped her bare, forcing her to confront not just the tangible dangers lurking beneath the veneer of luxury, but also her own deeply ingrained impatience, her consuming desire for external validation, and her naive willingness to trust too quickly in the glittering promises of a world she barely knew. The other guests, those enigmatic figures who had shared her gilded prison, began to file out quietly, their faces still impassive, their eyes avoiding hers. They melted into the night, but Chioma wasn't left alone on the tarmac. Instead, as the last passenger descended, a large, dark-skinned man in a sober suit stepped forward, gesturing curtly towards a waiting black SUV. "Ms. Chioma," he said, his voice low and devoid of warmth, "Mr. Tay has arranged your next phase of the experience." Fear, cold and sharp, lanced through Chioma. This wasn't the end, it was a terrifying continuation. She looked at Tay, her big, expressive eyes pleading for an explanation, for mercy. He merely offered a faint, unsettling smile. "Every choice has its price, Chioma," he repeated, his words chilling her to the bone. "And some lessons are best learned outside the confines of comfort." She was ushered into the waiting SUV, the plush leather seats now a grim mockery of luxury. The vehicle sped away from the airstrip, not towards the glittering lights of a city, but into a darker, more secluded unknown, taking her to a hidden location where her true ordeal was about to begin, an ordeal that would not only cost her image but threaten her very soul. The gilded cage of the private jet had merely been a prelude to a far more sinister reality. The SUV drove for a long, unsettling time, eventually pulling up to a sprawling, opulent villa, far grander and more secluded than anything she had ever seen. Golden light spilled from ornate windows, but it offered no warmth, only a sense of foreboding. Chioma was led through cavernous, lavishly decorated rooms, each filled with antique furniture and priceless art, until she reached a private suite, her accommodations. It was breathtakingly luxurious, yet felt like the most terrifying prison she had ever entered. Tay appeared again, his smile now completely gone, replaced by a cold, businesslike demeanor. "You understand why you are here, Chioma," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "You wanted the soft life. This is the source. Our clients desire unique company. And you, with your beauty and charisma, are ideal." He gestured to a small, heavy bag on a nearby table, overflowing with crisp foreign currency and glittering designer gifts. "This is a token of appreciation for your cooperation tonight. More will follow, should you prove amenable." Chioma's blood ran cold. The implication was unmistakable, sickening. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a desperate drum against the onslaught of pure, unadulterated terror. "No!" she gasped, her voice hoarse, shaking her head violently. "I didn't agree to this. This isn't what I wanted." Tay merely raised an eyebrow, a chilling lack of sympathy in his gaze. "You agreed to my invitation. You vanished for 3 days. Your image, your reputation, your future, they are all in my hands now. Remember our little assets from the jet? They can tell a very different story to your millions of followers. A story that would destroy you." He paused, letting his words hang heavy in the air. "Or, you can simply do as you're asked, emerge richer than your wildest dreams, and continue your soft life with renewed opportunities. The choice, Chioma, is yours. but it is not really a choice. A profound sense of hopelessness washed over her. Trapped, isolated, her phone confiscated, she had no escape. The terror, the humiliation, the utter violation of her being overwhelmed her. The first night in that luxurious villa became a blur of unspeakable horror, a night that irrevocably shattered her innocence and her dreams. It was a night she would forever try to erase, a trauma burned into her very soul. When dawn finally broke, casting a pale, indifferent light into her opulent prison, Chioma was a shell of her former self, clutching the heavy bag of cash and designer gifts, each item a grim reminder of the unspeakable price she had paid. Her soft life ambition had led her to a hell she never imagined. The next morning, Chioma awoke to a body that ached with an unfamiliar, profound soreness and a mind that felt utterly numb. The memory of the night before crashed over her in waves of nausea and despair. Yet, amidst the horror, a spark of defiance, small but insistent, began to flicker within her. She moved like a ghost through the lavish suite. The weight of the cash and the cold gleam of the designer presents a constant, mocking presence. She felt utterly debased, her image, her self-worth, shattered into a million pieces. Later that day, Tay returned, accompanied by two of his silent, imposing bodyguards. He found her staring blankly out of the window, seeing nothing but the reflection of her own broken spirit. "Ready for your next opportunity, Chioma?" he asked, his voice smooth as if nothing untoward had happened. He held up a small, sleek video camera. "Tonight, our client has a specific request. They wish to document the experience. For their private collection, of course. It will ensure an even more substantial reward." Chioma spun around, her eyes blazing with a raw, desperate fire. The spark of defiance had ignited into a furious inferno. "No!" she screamed, her voice cracking but resolute. I won't let you do this to me again. You can't make me." The thought of being recorded, of her humiliation being immortalized and shared, was a line she would not cross. It was a final, desperate stand for the last vestiges of her dignity. Tay's easy smile vanished, replaced by an expression of cold, dangerous fury. "You forget your place, Chioma," he growled, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "You belong to me now. Your choices are an illusion. This is not a request, it is an order." He nodded curtly to the two bodyguards. The next moments dissolved into a terrifying blur of pain and fear. Hands grabbed her roughly. She struggled, fought with a desperate, primal strength she didn't know she possessed, screaming her defiance. But she was no match for their brute force. Blows rained down upon her, sharp, brutal impacts that sent shockwaves of agony through her body. She collapsed, hitting the ornate floor with a sickening thud, her vision blurring, her head throbbing. The luxury of the room mocked her as she lay there, bruised and broken, the video camera lying innocently on the table, a silent witness to her brutal punishment. They left her bleeding on the floor, a stark message about the consequences of disobedience. The soft life had turned into a nightmare of pure brutality. Chioma lay on the cold, polished floor for what felt like an eternity, her body throbbing with pain, her spirit utterly shattered. The last vestiges of her ambition, her dreams of glamour, had been beaten out of her. Yet, in the depths of her despair, a different kind of strength began to emerge, the desperate, primal will to survive. She would not let them break her completely. She would not endure another night of violation. Slowly, painstakingly, she dragged herself up. Her head pounded, and her limbs protested with every movement, but a fierce, cold resolve fueled her. She staggered towards the opulent bathroom, splashed water on her bruised face, and saw the stranger looking back at her in the mirror, a broken reflection, but with a flicker of fierce determination in her big, expressive eyes. She had to escape. She checked the door to the suite. Unlocked. A small miracle amidst the terror. Carefully, silently, she crept out into the deserted corridor, her bare feet silent on the thick carpet. The villa was eerily quiet, the golden lights now casting long, unsettling shadows. She navigated the labyrinthine corridors, driven by instinct and a desperate prayer, until she found a service exit. With a surge of adrenaline, she pushed it open, stepping out into the cool, dark night. She was outside the villa walls, now lost in a sprawling, unfamiliar landscape of manicured gardens and dense trees. She ran, blindly, instinctively, ignoring the pain, ignoring the thorns that tore at her dress and scratched her skin. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs threatened to give out, driven by the sheer terror of being caught. Hours later, disoriented and utterly exhausted, Chioma stumbled onto a dimly lit, unpaved road. She was far from any city, just endless darkness and the distant hum of an unseen highway. Her designer dress was torn, her hair disheveled, her body bruised and aching. She was a ghost, a shadow of her former glamorous self, roaming the deserted streets, lost and terrified. Just as despair threatened to consume her entirely, a beam of light cut through the darkness. A car. It slowed, then stopped. A kind-faced African woman, her features softened by worry, stepped out. "Are you all right, my dear?" the woman asked, her voice gentle, full of genuine concern. "You look terribly lost. What happened to you?" Chioma collapsed, tears finally flowing freely down her bruised cheeks. "I need help," she sobbed, her voice a raw whisper. "Please. I need to go home." The woman, a good Samaritan whose name Chioma would later learn was Amina, helped her into the car, offering her water and a comforting silence. For the first time in days, Chioma felt a fragile glimmer of hope. She was no longer alone. Amina took her to a small, humble guest house, offering her a clean room, food, and a working phone. Chioma stared at the device, her fingers trembling as she dialed the only number she knew by heart, Ife. The sound of Ife's voice, thick with worry and relief, was like a lifeline pulling Chioma from the depths of a dark ocean. "Chioma! Oh my God, where are you? We've been sick with worry. Everyone's looking for you." Ife's frantic words were a jumble of emotions, but Chioma clung to the familiarity, the genuine love. Through ragged breaths and fresh tears, Chioma recounted a fragmented version of her ordeal: the private jet, the vanishing, the vague sense of being trapped and coerced, the escape, the brutal beating. She couldn't bring herself to articulate the full, unspeakable horror of the first night, nor the nature of the forced documentation. Shame and fear still held her captive, even across the phone lines. But Ife understood the gravity of the situation. Her best friend was hurt, traumatized, and stranded. "I don't have money for a flight back, Ife," Chioma whispered, her voice barely audible. "I have nothing." Ife's response was immediate and resolute. "Don't worry about money, Chioma. Just stay safe. Stay hidden. I'll figure it out." True to her word, Ife sprang into action. She immediately launched a GoFundMe campaign, spreading the word across Chioma's massive social media following and beyond. She crafted a carefully worded appeal, describing Chioma's mysterious disappearance, her distressing ordeal, and her traumatic escape from an unknown, dangerous situation in a foreign land. She emphasized Chioma's vulnerability and the urgent need to bring her home to safety, avoiding the explicit, more damaging details that Chioma was not ready to share. The response was overwhelming. Chioma's fans, who had worried and speculated about her absence for days, rallied instantly. Messages of support poured in alongside generous donations. The story of the beautiful Lagos slay queen who vanished on a private jet and then dramatically escaped danger resonated deeply. Within hours, the GoFundMe target was not just met, but surpassed. The power of her online community, the very platform she had once used to chase a superficial dream, now became her salvation. With the funds secured, Ife meticulously arranged Chioma's flight, ensuring discretion and safety. Amina, the Good Samaritan, helped Chioma get to the airport, a silent, comforting presence until Chioma was safely aboard. The flight back to Lagos was a surreal blur. Each hour brought her closer to home, but also closer to confronting the shattered pieces of her life. When the plane finally touched down on Nigerian soil, Ife was there, her face a mixture of profound relief and tearful concern. As Chioma stepped off the plane, bruised, exhausted, and forever changed, she fell into her best friend's arms, knowing that the journey home was only the beginning of her long, painful road to recovery. The soft life had given way to a harsh reality, but she had survived, thanks to the kindness of a stranger and the unwavering loyalty of her true friend. Back in Lagos, the familiar cityscape, with its cacophony of sounds and vibrant tapestry of life, felt profoundly different. The usual rush of traffic, the distant melodies of Afrobeats from roadside speakers, the mingled sense of street food and exhaust fumes, all these elements of her home now carried both immense comfort and a newfound, almost unsettling perspective. The memory of the sleek private jet, the clinking champagne flutes, the illusion of effortless glamour, all of it now coalesced into a potent, unforgettable lesson. Chioma walked through the bustling streets, her steps measured, her gaze more observant. The bright sunlight, once taken for granted, felt like a gentle balm on her skin, a tangible connection to the world she had almost lost. She saw the city with new eyes, appreciating the genuine, unvarnished beauty of everyday life, the resilience etched into the faces of ordinary people, the vibrant authenticity that permeated every corner. She arranged to meet Ife at their favorite street-side cafe, a familiar haunt where they had shared countless dreams and anxieties over steaming cups of coffee. The sheer, overwhelming relief of seeing her best friend, of being back in the embrace of genuine human connection, was almost too much to bear. Chioma's eyes welled up slightly, a silent testament to the terror she had endured. "You're back," Ife breathed, her own eyes wide with a mixture of profound relief and lingering worry. "I was worried sick, Chioma. Where did you go?" Chioma forced a small, fragile smile, a subtle curve of her lips that didn't quite reach her eyes. The full story, the raw, terrifying truth of those 3 days, was not something she could articulate just yet, not in its entirety. It was too vast, too complex, too deeply etched into her soul. "I've learned something important, Ife," she said, her voice soft but imbued with a newfound gravitas. She stirred her coffee, watching the cream swirl into the dark liquid. "Not everything that shines is safe. Not every opportunity is what it seems. Sometimes, the most beautiful paths can lead to the darkest places." Ife listened, her expression serious, sensing the profound shift in her friend. She didn't press for details, understanding that some experiences left scars too deep for immediate sharing. Chioma knew that while the physical ordeal was over, the internal journey of processing, understanding, and truly integrating the lesson had only just begun. The soft life dream, once a dazzling, singular pursuit, now came with a chilling asterisk, a silent caveat about the price of ambition and the deceptive nature of appearances. She had returned, but she was irrevocably changed, forever marked by the 3 days she vanished into the gilded cage. In the quiet weeks that followed her return, Chioma became a woman of introspection. The vibrant, often chaotic rhythm of Lagos life continued around her, but she moved through it with a new, deliberate calm. Her once relentless pursuit of external validation, of the perfect Instagram aesthetic, had been replaced by a profound internal dialogue. She spent long hours reflecting, replaying every decision, every impulse, and every moment she had allowed her ambition to blind her judgment. The memory of the private jet, no longer a symbol of aspirational luxury, had transformed into a stark, visceral reminder of a dangerous precipice. The soft life dream, with its intoxicating allure of ease and glamour, was still appealing. The desire for comfort, for security, for a life free from financial worry, remained deeply ingrained. But she understood now, with a clarity born of harrowing experience, that dreams had consequences. Luxury, while undeniably seductive, carried hidden dangers, unseen costs, and unspoken rules that could ensnare the unwary. It was a glittering ocean, beautiful on the surface, but fraught with unseen currents and treacherous depths. She began to meticulously rebuild her life, focusing on foundations rather than facades. Her energy, once poured into curated posts and strategic networking, was now redirected towards more tangible, authentic pursuits. She sought out small, genuine wins, a heartfelt conversation with Ife that lasted for hours, a quiet afternoon spent reading a book, a simple meal shared with family. She nurtured real connections, valuing sincerity and trust above fleeting admiration. She gravitated towards experiences that brought genuine joy and a sense of accomplishment, deliberately sidestepping those that whispered of risk or promised superficial thrills. The lesson was crystal clear, etched into her soul with the permanence of a brand. Ambition itself was not inherently wrong. It was a powerful, necessary drive. But recklessness, particularly when fueled by a blind yearning for external validation, could be deadly. The pursuit of the soft life, she now understood, required not just drive, but wisdom, discernment, and an unwavering respect for the unseen boundaries of safety and authenticity. She had been tested, and though the trial had been terrifying, she had emerged with a profound truth. Months later, Chioma posted a new photo on Instagram. It was a simple selfie, captured in the soft, natural light of her own apartment. There were no private jets in the background, no designer labels prominently displayed, no carefully staged opulent settings. Just Chioma, her face open and serene, adorned with a genuine, unforced smile that reached her big, expressive eyes. Her waist-length braids were neatly styled, a familiar comfort. Her followers, a community she had once sought to impress with every lavish detail, noticed the change. It wasn't a superficial alteration in her beauty. She was still undeniably attractive, but a deeper, more profound shift in her very presence. There was a newfound confidence that radiated from within, a quiet wisdom that resonated beyond the pixels, and a subtle, unshakable strength that no amount of luxury or external validation could ever buy. The frantic energy of her past posts was replaced by a calm, grounded authenticity. In the comments section, a familiar question, fueled by the lingering mystery of her sudden absence, surfaced from one of her longtime followers. "Where did you disappear to that night? We were so worried." Chioma didn't answer directly. She scrolled past the question, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. She understood that the full story of those 3 vanished days, the harrowing truth of her experience, would remain hers alone. A private testament to the inherent dangers of chasing glamour without caution, a sacred, unshared narrative of survival and self-discovery. But she also knew, with unwavering certainty, that she had grown immeasurably. She had learned lessons that transcended material wealth, lessons forged in the crucible of fear and isolation. And most importantly, she had survived, emerging stronger, wiser, and irrevocably changed. The soft life dream, that glittering aspiration that had once consumed her, still shimmered tantalizingly in the distance. Its allure had not entirely faded, but now she approached it with an entirely new perspective, with deliberate care, with profound awareness, and with a deep, abiding respect for its potential pitfalls. Luxury could indeed be enjoyed, she now understood, savored for its beauty and comfort. But it could only be truly embraced when paired with an unshakable foundation of wisdom, an acute sense of discernment, and an unwavering commitment to her own well-being. And for Chioma, that hard-won lesson, forged in the depths of an unexpected ordeal, was ultimately worth more than any private jet, any coveted designer bag, or any fleeting thrill that a superficial world could offer. It was the invaluable currency of self-knowledge and genuine resilience, a treasure far more precious than gold.